I was about 17 at the time of this, so my memory is a bit hazy, but I will try to remember as much as I can. I used to want children more than anything. It was my dream since I was a child myself. But for some reason I always knew my purpose would be for something else. I remember the morning very clearly. My mom tried to wake me up at least 5 times, but I was too tired and hated school. She eventually gave up as always. I wish I would have just went to school that day. Instead I got up around 1 p.m. and went to go hang out in the woods with my friend Lexi, who was dropped out. We just got high as usual and talked about nature and whatever hippie shit we were into at the time, and everything else under the sun. We would just talk for hours. For some reason we got onto the subject of dogs. I remember that very clearly.
Why do people love pit bulls so much?
She said. I'm not sure. They attack people way more than any other breed, yet people defend them like they're all angels, I replied. We didn't think it could ever be a supernatural occurrence. Neither of us really knew if there were gods or demons or any of that, until that day. We were on our way back to her house, just walking in the middle of the street. By this time it was nighttime with no one driving. She lived in a really nice quiet neighborhood. No one let their dogs run around, and if they did it was a golden retriever or something. But out of nowhere, we seen a pure white animal running straight towards us at full speed. As it got closer I realized it was a pit bull. We panicked and ran between 2 houses. When we got far enough we looked back, and to our surprise it had kept running straight down the road, growling and panting as it ran. We were morbidly curious now. We found a couple fallen branches that had pointy ends, and I also had a small pocket knife, as if it would have helped. We walked in the direction we seen it run, but not very fast, as we weren't as brave as we pretended to be. We just kept walking steadily. Then after a few minutes we both decided it probably just ran home. Just when we were going to turn around and start walking to her house we heard it. The most blood-curdling scream I've ever heard to this day. And it was the scream of a small child. We ran towards the screams as fast as we could with our pointy sticks, almost scaring ourselves. When we finally got there, the pit bull had his jaws around the throat of the kid, and was violently shaking him back and forth like a rag doll. We both hesitated at first, but simultaneously we lunged at it, stabbing the beast as hard as we could, but it was as if it was made of stone. It even made a sound like something completely solid. That's when it turned its head towards us. It let go of the limp child, who was already dead. And it fucking smiled. Its grin, dripping with blood and veins, was the most gruesome thing I've ever seen. Its piercing human-like eyes dilated until they were almost black like a shark's eyes. Time seemed to slow down around us. The area behind the dog seemed completely black, and we were frozen. I couldn't move at all, so I know Lexi couldn't either, or she would have. The black aura grew bigger and bigger, and looked like it was coming towards us. Time felt like it had completely stopped. The entire area around me was black. I couldn't see Lexi anymore. It smelled like a rotten corpse. The blood dripping from its mouth turned into veins, which grew until they were all around me and I was in its grasp. This dog, it started talking to me. He did it telepathically in English, but while he was saying it, I remember his mouth moving and he was talking in a deep guttural growling voice, what must have been Latin, because I remember him saying the name to summon him, was Canis Lupus Diabulus. He told me that I would praise his name and his children always, or he could possess any pit bull he wanted and savagely maul my children to death. He showed me a slideshow, like flashing visions, of all the people he spread this virus to. It must have been thousands of different people, all vehemently defending pit bulls. Some of them even became breeders, many of them adopted pit bulls. The more thou praise, The more I reward thee, I remember him saying, but he didn't say what the reward would be. I didn't believe him though. His stench was so putrid I wanted to gag, but I still couldn't move. He bragged about how even those who have never even spoke to him directly are still defending his children, so that meant to him that he was a god whose religion was growing. He bragged about the rising amount of pit bull mauling he had nothing to do with. When my children choose to sacrifice the human children, they do it in my name every time, even if they don't know it. They always make the sacrifice to me, and it brings me that much closer to becoming a god. He told me he would visit me occasionally to remind me he's always watching, and that he sees through the eyes of every living pit bull on earth. All around I could see smaller spirits and apparitions of pit bulls growling and snarling at me, all staring at me. Canis Lupus Diabulus was still in the center, just looking at me. Veins were bulging from his neck. When I thought in my mind that I would agree to praise pit bulls, they all stopped snarling and put on that smiling expression, but their eyes still looked like sharks. It creeps me out, and they went back to snarling. The whole time he was staring, he never blinked. His gaze started to burn. It felt like he was staring into my soul. Suddenly visions of myself getting eaten alive by a pack of pitch-black rabid pit bulls with glowing white eyes. It became too real. In that realm he had me in, I could feel everything happening. But I could still see him staring, so I told myself it wasn't real, but I could still feel them ripping at my flesh, tendons snapping, chunks of skin flying. I finally conceded. I promised I would get a pit bull. Though I decided that I would never have kids, just in case, I could never be responsible for their death. The bright red veins slowly receded back into his mouth, and before he disappeared, he smiled again. He gave me a dire warning: if I ever told anyone about this, I myself would be brutally mauled to death. And then everything went black. When I woke up, it was daytime and I was home in my bed. I thought it was all just some kind of bad nightmare and it was time to go to school. I was about to tell my mom about my bad dream when I felt my hands were raw. She was on the phone when I walked in the room, talking to her friend about the poor little boy who was killed by a pit bull last night. My stomach dropped. I felt like I was going to pee my pants. I remembered its face. It was real. My mom said that I came home in a daze and looked weird, and if I was okay. I said I was fine and went back in my room and cried. 5 years have gone by since then. I never brought it up again with Lexi. Besides, remember when we tried to save that little boy? I still don't know if she's seen the demon. I haven't asked and I don't want to hurt her accidentally. She hasn't had any kids yet, and doesn't use social media, so I can't tell if she praises pit bulls or not. I keep my praise of them to a minimum, but I have 2 pit bulls. Occasionally I'll get a telepathic message through one of them, that I am not praising enough. I don't care anymore though. I am too depressed to keep living. I can never fulfill my dream of having kids, and instead I'm stuck with these foul-smelling, destructive, aggressive fur babies I call them. To be honest, they can be cute. But deep down I just resent them. I can never have real children, it would be too dangerous. My true hatred for them is too deep. I'd rather just not have kids than risk having one of them killed by the thing I hate the most. I knew I would come out with this story someday anyway. They've been growling and scratching at the door the entire time I've been writing this. I can even hear other dogs barking out in the woods behind my house. I'm going to post this, then take them for a walk. If it has to happen, I'm hoping a bunch of them come out at once and get it over with quickly. Or maybe he knows no one will believe the story and nothing will happen. I'll just take them for a walk. Maybe if someone out there has any expertise in demonology, They could try to bind and seal the demon so it can't hurt anyone else, like King Solomon. I am too afraid to face him again, but I believe that is his real name, Canis Lupus Diabulus.